Top 10 performers and actors who died live on stage. Imagine this. The spotlight is on you. The crowd is roaring. You're doing what you love most in the world. And then, in an instant, it all goes dark. Forever. Some of the world's most beloved performers took their final bow not in a hospital bed, not surrounded by family, but right there, in front of thousands of people. From a magician whose trick became his tomb, to a comedian who thought he was part of the act, to a rock legend whose final note still haunts fans today. These are the shocking, tragic, and sometimes eerie stories of performers who literally gave everything for their art. This is top 10 performers and actors who died live on stage. And trust me, number 1 will leave you speechless. The stage is sacred. It's where artists transform into something larger than life. But it's also unpredictable, vulnerable, and sometimes deadly. Throughout history, performers have collapsed mid-song, suffered heart attacks during comedy routines, and experienced freak accidents that turned applause into silence. These aren't just tragic footnotes in entertainment history. They're reminders of how fragile life truly is, even under the brightest lights. So buckle up. What you're about to hear isn't folklore. These stories are real, documented, and in some cases, still unexplained. 10th, Edith Webster. We're starting with a name you might not know, but her story is unforgettable. Edith Webster was a British stage actress performing in a production of The Drunkard at a theater in Baltimore, 1986. During a particularly emotional scene, she suddenly collapsed. The audience thought it was part of the performance. They kept watching. Even her fellow actors hesitated, thinking she was improvising. But Edith wasn't acting. She'd suffered a massive heart attack. By the time they realized something was wrong, it was too late. She died right there, in costume, under the stage lights. What makes this even more haunting? The line she just delivered before collapsing was, "I feel so strange." Sometimes reality writes the cruelest scripts. But if you think that's tragic, wait until you hear about the comedian who made an entire audience laugh while he was dying. 9th, Molière. Let's travel back to 1673. Molière, one of the greatest playwrights and actors in French history, was performing in his own play, The Imaginary Invalid. Irony alert, he was playing a hypochondriac obsessed with his own death. During the 4th performance, Molière began coughing violently on stage. He struggled through the scene, blood reportedly appearing on his lips. The audience was transfixed. When the curtain fell, he collapsed backstage. Hours later, he was dead, likely from tuberculosis or a pulmonary hemorrhage. Here's the kicker. The church refused to bury him in sacred ground because actors were considered sinful. His wife had to plead with the king just to get him a Christian burial. Molière spent his life making people laugh, but his death became a grim prophecy of the character he played. Art imitating life, or life imitating art. From the stage of 17th century France to the concert halls of the 20th century, tragedy knows no era, and sometimes it strikes the ones we least expect. 8th, Leonard Warren. Leonard Warren was one of the greatest operatic baritones of all time. On March 4, 1960, he was performing Verdi's La Forza del Destino at the Metropolitan Opera in New York. He'd just finished singing the aria Morir, Tremenda Cosa, which translates to die, a momentous thing. Seconds later, he collapsed face first on the stage. The orchestra stopped. The audience gasped. Doctors rushed to help, but Leonard Warren was already gone. A massive heart attack had claimed him instantly. What makes this story so eerie is the timing. He literally sang about death, and then died. Opera fans still refer to it as one of the most chilling moments in live performance history. Verdi's music has always been powerful, but that night it felt prophetic. But opera houses aren't the only venues haunted by tragedy. Sometimes the stage becomes a crime scene. 7th, Yoshiyuki Takada. In 1985, Japanese musician Yoshiyuki Takada was performing with his band at a small live music venue. Mid-song, he accidentally touched a microphone that wasn't properly grounded. The electric shock was so severe that it killed him instantly. The audience didn't immediately realize what had happened. Some thought he'd simply fallen. But within seconds, the horror became clear. Yoshiyuki Takada, just 21 years old, had been electrocuted in front of his fans. His death sparked major reforms in Japan's live music safety protocols. Stage equipment, wiring, grounding standards, all were overhauled. Yoshiyuki didn't just lose his life that night. He became the reason countless others were saved. But that doesn't make the tragedy any less heartbreaking. Electricity, heart attacks, prophecy. The stage has claimed lives in every way imaginable. But sometimes the cause isn't medical. It's something far more sinister. Sixth, Karl Wallenda. Karl Wallenda was the patriarch of the world, famous Flying Wallendas, a high-wire circus act that defied gravity. In 1978, at age 73, Karl was performing a tightrope walk between two hotels in San Juan, Puerto Rico. The wind was stronger than expected. Witnesses say he hesitated, struggled for balance, then reached out as if trying to grab the wire. But it was too late. Karl Wallenda fell 120 feet to his death. Cameras captured it all. It was broadcast on news stations worldwide. What makes this even more tragic? Karl had spent his entire life on the wire. He once said, "Life is on the wire, everything else is just waiting." For him, there was no retirement, no slowing down. The wire was his life, and ultimately, his death. His family continues the tradition today, walking the same high wires in his honor. But the footage of that fall? It still sends chills down your spine. If you think high wire acts are dangerous, wait until you hear what happened to this next performer. Because his death wasn't an accident, it was a trick gone horribly, fatally wrong. Fifth, Chung Ling-soo. Chung Ling-soo was one of the most famous magicians of the early 1900s. His real name? William Robinson, a white American man who performed in full Chinese costume and never broke character, even off stage. His most famous trick was the bullet catch, where he would seemingly catch a bullet fired from a gun. On March 23, 1918, during a performance at the Wood Green Empire Theatre in London, something went catastrophically wrong. The gun fired. But this time, the bullet didn't miss. It struck him in the chest. Chung Ling-soo collapsed, blood pouring from the wound. His final words, spoken in English for the first time in public, were, "Oh my God, something's happened, lower the curtain." He died the next day. Investigations revealed that the gun had malfunctioned, but some speculated sabotage. Either way, Chung Ling-soo's final performance became his most unforgettable, and his last, magic, stunts, and spectacle, they all come with risk. But you'd think a simple rock concert would be safer. You'd be wrong. Fourth, Dimebag Darrell. December 8, 2004, Dimebag Darrell, legendary guitarist of Pantera and Damageplan, was performing at the El Rosa Villa nightclub in Columbus, Ohio. Just a few songs into the set, a man rushed the stage, pulled out a gun, and shot Dimebag multiple times at point-blank range. Chaos erupted. 3 others were killed before a police officer shot and killed the gunman. Dimebag Darrell died on stage, guitar still strapped to his body. Fans and musicians worldwide were devastated. Tributes poured in from Metallica, Slayer, and beyond. The motive? The shooter was reportedly suffering from mental illness and blamed Dimebag for breaking up Pantera. But no explanation makes this any less senseless. Dimebag didn't just die on stage. He was murdered, in front of his fans, doing what he loved. Metal lost one of its greatest that night, and the stage was stained with more than just memories. From violence to freak accidents to sudden illness, the stage has no mercy. But our top 3? They're the ones that left the world truly stunned. Third, Steve Irwin, honorable mention, on camera, not stage. Wait, Steve Irwin didn't die on a stage. But he did die doing what he loved, on camera, in front of his crew. And his story is so iconic it deserves mention. The crocodile hunter was filming a documentary called Ocean's Deadliest in 2006 when a stingray's barb pierced his chest, striking his heart. He died almost instantly. Footage of the incident exists, but it's never been released publicly. Steve Irwin's death shocked the world. Millions mourned. And though he wasn't on a traditional stage, the ocean was his theater, the animals his co-stars. He gave his life in the wild, just as he lived it. Crikey, mate, rest easy. Now let's get back to the theater, because our final 2 entries are the ones that truly define this tragic list. Second, Johnny Ace. Johnny Ace was a rising R&B star in the 1950s. On Christmas Eve, 1954, he was backstage at the City Auditorium in Houston, Texas between sets. Witnesses say he was playing with a .22 caliber revolver, joking around. He put the gun to his head and pulled the trigger, reportedly playing Russian roulette. The gun fired. Johnny Ace was dead at 25. Some say it was an accident. Others whisper it was suicide. Either way, his death became instant legend, fueling decades of conspiracy theories and tragic folklore. His song, Pledging My Love, became a posthumous hit, climbing the charts as fans mourned. Johnny Ace didn't die on stage in the traditional sense, but his death backstage, moments before his performance, made it inseparable from his legacy. And the mystery still lingers. But there's one story that stands above them all. One performer whose death was so public, so sudden, and so profoundly tragic that it's still talked about decades later. Let me introduce you to number 1. First, Owen Hart, May 23, 1999. Kansas City, Missouri. The WWE's Over the Edge pay-per-view event. Owen Hart, beloved professional wrestler and entertainer, was scheduled to make a dramatic entrance, descending from the rafters dressed as his superhero character, the Blue Blazer. But something went horribly wrong. The harness released prematurely. Owen fell over 70 feet, crashing chest first into the ring turnbuckle. 60,000 fans watched in horror. Many thought it was part of the show, but it wasn't. Owen Hart died from blunt force trauma. He was 34 years old. The event continued controversially after his death. WWE faced massive backlash, lawsuits, and soul-searching. Owen's widow, Martha, has fought for years to preserve his legacy and ensure his death wasn't in vain. What makes this number 1? Owen didn't die from illness or an accident in a far-off venue. He died in front of the world, in a scripted entertainment event, doing a stunt that should have been safe. His death changed wrestling forever, and his memory endures as a reminder that no matter how rehearsed, how scripted, how safe a performance seems, tragedy can strike in an instant. These 10 performers didn't just entertain us, they gave everything, literally, for their craft. From magicians to musicians, comedians to daredevils, they remind us that the stage is both a place of beauty and danger. Life is fragile, art is eternal, and sometimes the final curtain falls when we least expect it. So here's my question for you. If you could witness any performance in history knowing what would happen, would you still go? Would you want to be there for Leonard Warren's final aria or Tommy Cooper's last laugh? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this video as haunting as I did, smash that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into history's most shocking moments, and hit the bell so you never miss an upload. Because trust me, we're just getting started. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, and remember, every